I'll try this without slides for the moment. Charles Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll, wanted to be remembered as a mathematician rather than just an author for two children's books. Initially, historians considered him a mediocre mathematician and a dull mathematics teacher. Then in 1960, Martin Gardner published The Annotated Alice, which helped the world to see, this is just what Mark was saying. Then in 1960, Martin Gardner published The Annotated Alice, which helped the world to see that Alice's adventures were much more than just stories for children, and a rich mathematics was embedded throughout. Dodgson also inserted a lot of humor in his more technical writings, in his recreational puzzles, and in some of his political papers. And he frequently included humorous premises as examples in his books on logic. Gardner went on to become a co-founder of the Lewis Carroll Society of North America. This, along with the publishing of Dodgson's diaries a few years later, encouraged mathematicians, historians, and researchers to have another look at Dodgson's mathematics. In this short presentation, we'll talk about Dodgson's philosophy regarding Euclidean geometry. Hopefully, you want to explore more topics on your own. Dodgson contributed to the mathematical works in various areas, including logic, recreational mathematics, and the mathematics of voting, and others. My particular interest in Dodgson's view is Dodgson's view of geometry, and whether he knew about non-Euclidean geometry. And if he did know about it, why did he reject it? It seemed that he was writing about non-Euclidean geometry in his book Euclid and His Modern Rivals. It makes sense, but the book was in fact reviewing other presentations of Euclidean geometry in textbooks for students. It wasn't about non-Euclidean geometry. It did mention approaches to the parallel postulate, but basically didn't consider non-Euclidean geometry itself at all. In general, Dodgson believed in accepting an axiom required ordinary rather than mathematical reasoning. For example, ordinary human reasoning involves visual processing, and when looking at the parallel lines, we cannot see them to be infinitely long. In Dodgson's book, A New Theory of Parallels, he tries to supersede Euclid's 12th axiom, also sometimes called the fifth postulate, that is the parallel postulate, so that it does not involve infinities and infinitesimals, as all the other approaches to Euclidean geometry seem to do. These are some quotes from the introduction to this new theory of parallels, which is what the slide is showing. It may well be doubted whether in all the range of science there is any field so fascinating to the explorer, so rich in hidden treasures, so fruitful in delightful surprises as that of pure mathematics. The charm lies chiefly, I think, in the absolute certainty of its results. For that is what, beyond almost any mental treasures, the human intellect craves for. Let us only be sure of something. Fran Abeles, who's spoken here, a major expert in Dodgson's mathematics, describes Dodgson's philosophy as follows. It is very clear that Dodgson knew of, but did not accept, non-Euclidean geometry because he could not accept the idea that geometry was not an absolute science. Dodgson fervently believed that mathematics produced results of absolute certainty, and that axioms had to refer to reality and meaningful ideas. These attitudes, far from being unusual, were held by the majority of mathematicians of his time. Non-Euclidean geometries were accepted as consistent mathematical theories, but not as depictions of real space. Intuitively, we know what a straight line looks like, and non-Euclidean geometries distort that view. Euclid's geometry was preferable because Euclid used logic on figures based on ordinary geometric intuition. It was not faulty mathematical ability that led Dodgson to ignore one of the great discoveries of his time, but a restricted philosophical outlet, one that bound together his aesthetic values with demonstrable truths. And that's from, I don't know whether I can get that up here. Well, that's from the book, the pamphlets of volume 2 of the pamphlets of Lewis Carroll, which Mark had on the screen a little while ago. I hope this short talk has given you more appreciation of Charles Dodgson's contribution to the mathematics of his time, and how this outlook on mathematics in general and about axioms in particular was shaped by a view that he shared with many mathematicians of his generation, which views mathematics as an unchanging science that represents the real world. It has been thought that Dodgson rejected non-Euclidean geometry, but I would say just was not very interested in it. And the reason was his belief in pure mathematics and the absolute certainty of its results. And that's all.